So Koert Debeuf, thank you so much for being here. So as well as being editor-in-chief of EU Observer and also a researcher at Oxford, you've also written the book Tribalization, and it looks at the decline of democracy, globalization, and suggests that if we don't stop the backsliding that's going on right now, we risk global war. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, yeah, thank you for having me. At a certain point, we all felt like things are going in a different way. You see more polarization, strong leaders and so forth. So I started to dig into some facts and figures. And what I found out is that an index, for example, that measures globalization, that since a few years, globalization is not going up anymore. By the way, for me, globalization is not just this concept since the Second World War, since 30 years.
Yeah.
It is, in history, people have always been more connecting with each other.
Yeah.
And you know the Silk Road as a symbol.
Absolutely.
Well, every time and every now and then in history, this line of globalization is stopping, is breaking down.
Yeah.
And that moment of breaking down, that's what I call tribalization.
Yeah.
And these moments, it's when trade is stopping, when connections are stopping, when walls are raised between countries, and this is usually leading to war. But when I look to the figures, I mean, I see since 2006 even that democracy, for the first time, less countries are becoming democratic. You see freedom is also declining. Democracy is declining, freedom is declining, economy is declining. So, and I see also that in 1989, there were 19 walls in the world between countries. Today there are more than 70 walls. So something very disturbing is going on. You see a lot in the analysis that people are first of going on economic causes. I think I see that things started to change before the financial crisis in 2007 and 8 or 9 as you wish. So in 2006 the numbers are already changing. And one particular interesting point was that the European Constitution was voted away in the Netherlands because of two things. First of all, they said, we do not want the European flag to be a symbolic, the flag to be official flag, and the European anthem, the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven. So that were like emotional things that were popping up in 2005.
Absolutely.
So I was thinking something changed in between, and I came to 9/11. And one thing of 9/11 is that everybody knows still today where he was when they heard the news about the planes crashing into the Twin Towers. And I think that was a kind of a global traumatic experience that actually slowly went into a kind of global identity crisis. Instead of having multiple identities, you focus on one single identity. And that single identity, you're holding fast on it. So that's how you get out of the identity crisis. And nations or groups are doing the same. So they go to a single identity, which is usually a national identity or a religious identity. And with authoritarian leadership, us versus them, it's always an enemy discourse. And looking back to a mythological past. And this is the process, in my opinion, that is going on. And this is what I'm describing in my book.
And so that actually leads me on to your own origins. Obviously, you're from Belgium yourself, from the Flemish-speaking part of Belgium. You've seen some of this increasing division in your own country. Would you see the same causes there, or would you see other factors that have contributed to increasing division between the Flemish and French-speaking parts of Belgium? Thoughts?
Well, I mean, Belgium is just like other countries, just following this path of tribalization. The discourse is becoming more tribal. I mean, looking for the enemy, again, mythological past, and leadership. I mean, authoritarian leadership. Today, I mean, almost 50% of the Flemish people are voting for a party with a harsh tribal discourse, so which is extremely worrying. So you see, of course, with Brexit, I mean, nobody can explain, except from psychological grounds, identity grounds, nationalistic grounds, why people voted against their own good. So their future is going to be in peril because of an identity choice. So this is spreading.
Yeah.
So, and that is a worrying part of it. So this kind of tribal discourse is spreading in my country, but actually everywhere.
Yeah. What do you see as the potential remedy to this tribalization? Is there a way back?
Some parties and politicians say we have to go to a discourse tribalization light. We have to take up a bit of that discourse and hope that those voters are not going to the extremes but stay with us.
Yeah.
But that hardly seems to work.
Yeah.
I mean, we have seen what Sarkozy has done in France. Le Pen is growing.
Yeah.
What I think is working is actually the opposite discourse.
Yeah.
And it is possible to win elections and change a discourse also with the population. We've seen it with Macron in France, with Trudeau in Canada, but also Angela Merkel with Wir schaffen das was a extremely strong message that actually destroyed ISIS.
Yeah, but you're now seeing the limits to all three of the leaders that you mentioned. Obviously, are probably in a weaker position now than they were a couple of years ago. Do they have a strong enough message to really counter that backslide, do you think?
Well, strong enough, I don't know, but at least they have the courage to do it.
Yes.
And to talk about real figures and not about fake news.
Yeah.
We can say, of course, they're weakened, but you know, every leader after a certain period of time becomes weaker. I mean, whatever he says. But at least you have to have the courage to continue to say the opposite message.
Yeah.
And the real message. And not being afraid of fake news or from some voices that are on the extreme side and who are starting to dominate also social media, who are very aggressive. Well, if you are becoming afraid of that, then everything is going down the drain.
What do you think the prospects are for Europe, both strengthening its internal unity and also speaking more effectively with one voice on the global stage?
But if there is one advantage, I mean, of Brexit, unfortunately, because I'm very sad about Brexit actually, but there's one advantage is that these voices of leaving the EU that were present in many countries in Europe, that these voices, you can't hear them anymore. I mean, they see leaving the EU is a very bad idea. Yeah. So let's say that's one advantage. And so that strengthens in a way the unity of Europe. On the other hand, we have also seen that in the European Parliament, in the European elections, I mean, the landscape is more fragmented.
Of course.
And more fragmentation, I mean, means also less stability and less chances, I would say, of speaking with one voice. Yeah. But despite these two things, I'm optimistic about about the direction they want to go into. Yeah.
With Mr. Trump now in office for about 2.5 years now, with a decent chance of being re-elected, we'll see. Obviously, the EU has had to come to terms with that Trumpian world. Do you think that that there is a clear prospect for Europe to be a more unified and a stronger global power, or do you think that there are still too many roadblocks to a unified European diplomatic and defence voice?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, they are working on a kind of European defence mechanism in some way, but it's a slow process in a very fast-moving world. And also, if I hear the voices here on the Doha Forum, I mean, if they talk about strong powers in the world, they're talking about the United States, Russia, and maybe China. So, but nobody talks about the EU. So, if the EU, are they going to become the strong power in the next 5 years? I don't think so. And actually, that's perhaps also not the strength of Europe. I think the strength of Europe is a soft power.
Of course, yeah.
And that soft power is still, I think, making waves. It's a kind of revolutionary approach in an evolutionary way. And it kind of works. So a kind of defense will be necessary, but will it be strong enough to be seen as a real hard power? I don't think it will ever happen.
Right. Is soft power still relevant and effective in this tribalizing world today?
Less and less, unfortunately. So Yeah, and the attractiveness has gone down, European attractiveness, also because of internal troubles. Brexit is making Europe also seem a bit weaker.
Yeah.
So, so it's less and less attractive. Nevertheless, I think they have to keep on working on it and keep on trying it. Because if you change course, then what do you still have in your hands?
Absolutely.
Actually nothing. So the only way is, I think, trying to keep course on that and to trying to change the way by increasing standards, be it on human rights, be it on trade and so forth. So, and I think that's what they have to keep doing.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Debeuf.
Thank you.
Thank you.